Okay, thinking aloud once again, trying again. I struggled with this all weekend because I suck. But I'm gonna see if this works. But I'll tell you what, I found out I have sound effects now. Check it out. I mean, I'm excited because this is gonna make for better content, right? Because I'm really good at this. Everybody knows I'm really good at this. Okay. Anyways, so I'm just gonna push this one out. It's It's rough. I tried all afternoon yesterday, and I tried this afternoon today. I got so mad I took a nap. Uh, that's when you know that I'm mad. I'm like, what's Mark doing? He's napping. Ah, shit. Don't talk to him for at least 2 days. Uh, we're thinking aloud, man. We're trying to keep this going. I'm trying to keep this going, and we're moving forward. And I don't know if this is gonna sound good or not. We're just gonna try. I put a couple of uh, I got them posted, but the sound was terrible. One time it was really good, and I just kept moving the mic. So you're hearing me talk, and it sounds like you're like an airplane is landing. You just hear, and I'm like talking about like the most important moment in my life. That's not true. So I'm just gonna try to get 10 minutes again. Let's shoot for 10 minutes. So I don't. Uh, I have notebooks. I had all kinds of plans. It all has gone to shit at this point. I just want to be able to post it and know that it goes up, and then just move on with my goddamn life because this has really been frustrating. So I've been shopping around a lot of ideas, and I don't really like doing this thing by myself, but it it's worth knowing that we have to keep churning out content. That's just really phase one. We're not going to get any better at this if I don't figure out these bugs and keep working and keep trying to get things done. So in the meantime, we're gonna have to put up with my mistakes, and trust me, nobody is more irritated with this than I am. Um, uh, you're welcome to comment. Umberto, go ahead. I'm sure you're already commenting right now to yourself as you're driving to work or whatever the hell you're doing. I hope you spill coffee on yourself. Anyways, so I have a multitude of topics. There's so many things I want to do, but I just picked something because there's nothing really that I would really want to do just solo. I mean, I think that moving forward, these things are going to be like the solo ones and I don't like doing them by the way, but everybody's busy. It's going to be really more talking about personal experiences of my own. In the meantime, we just got to keep going. So, okay, I'm going to try this. So, the topic today is going to be Charlie Chaplin. I'm sorry, guys. I wish I had a better one. Uh, so, I'm just going to go for it. Like I said, I want to do 10 minutes. So, Charles Spencer Chaplin Jr. is, in my opinion, the greatest filmmaker and actor of all time. I think he's the most important person in motion pictures, maybe ever. Um, for a multitude of reasons. There's a lot of reasons behind the scenes, but I'm going to stick to just his career, his artistic career. And so we'll just go there and we'll start at that. He was born in 1889. I believe the date is April 16th. Nobody knows for sure. And he was born to two music hall um, performers. His dad was a singer. His mother was a singer dancer. His dad was a pretty bad alcoholic. His mother was a woman lady of the evening, and they both had some off the scene issues. I think Charlie's dad was gone by the time he was four. He had another family, and then his mom had a couple other kids before and after Charlie with different people. Like his brother Sid, who ended up being his manager and probably his best friend, was his half brother. But she took him in when Charlie's childhood was really his mom, Sid, and himself. And he lived in abject poverty. Um, He was sent to a workhouse a couple times because his mom couldn't afford to keep the kids, and she couldn't afford the rent, and she ended up being hospitalized more than once for in an institution for mental illness, and I think she was ended up in an asylum and lived out her days there. She had problems. Charlie as well had some psychological issues. He was almost surely bipolar. I'm not going to delve into that. It's really up to you if you want to look that up. There's plenty of things about it. I've read a lot of books about the guy. I find this guy very intriguing. I'm going to bring that home before I sign off today for you Marvel nerds, because I know you guys are all Marvel nerds. Um, at about 8 years old, he had his first stage experience, and then by 14, he was a working actor. And uh, at that time, his brother had gone off to the Navy. I think I don't have the dates in front of me, and I'm not gonna bother to look it up because honestly, I barely care, which means you don't care at all. But at some point, his brother got out of the Navy and started work as a working comedian, and he ended up in working for Fred Karno, who was a very very famous for having a comedy troupe, a traveling comedy troupe, doing the music halls, because this is vaudeville pretty much. This is before cinema, and he was a horrible human being. By everything I've read, he's a terrible, terrible guy. He's really terrible to women in particular, but terrible to his actors. Paid them shit. Verbally, physically abusive with people. But he got people famous. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? And so Sid said, "Hey, my kid brother, man, he can sing and dance, and he's very athletic, and he needs a job, man." And so Carno, as a favor to Sid, took on Charlie, and it wasn't very long before Charlie was uh, pretty famous. Before that, he was part of what they called the Lancashire Lads. It's kind of I think there was 8 kids that they would sing and dance as openings to shows. And then he got a job as a page in a Sherlock Holmes traveling play that was somewhat uh, famous or profitable to say the very least. By the way, just so you guys know, I'm going off the top of my head here. No notes in front of me. I have a couple of movies written down, and that's it. Everything else you're getting is out of my noggin. And he was aging out of the page thing, and he needed a gig, and he went to work for a Carno's comedy troupe. He had a name for it. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to look it up because I just want to make sure I post this shit. And he ended up becoming very, very famous. He was the guy that everybody looked for. He did this recurring role where he was I think they called it the inebriate or the swell, the drunken swell, where he would like interrupt the show as a drunk guy in one of the boxes, and he would make up to be look like an old man, and he did it. It was a great shtick, and everybody loved it. So Max Sennett heard about this guy. Well, everybody heard about this guy. Have you heard about this guy Chaplin? So Max Sennett was the guy who ran Keystone Studios, and he had this Keystone Cops routine, and he heard Mabel Normand was his major star, who happened to be his girlfriend, by the way, and he heard about this Chaplin guy. Well, what he heard was everyone was trying to sign him, so he signed him really as a preventative measure. He didn't sign him because he wanted him. He had never even seen him work. He just signed him because he heard everybody else was trying to get him, and he wanted to make sure he nabbed him before someone else did. And so Charlie came to the United States and started his film career. And the first film that I think he made, and I have it somewhere, it's called Making a Living, and he plays like a villain. And it's a typical Keystone comedy, and there's not really anything very remarkable about it. And he did a couple things like that. And then, so I'm just going to cut to the chase here because I don't want to run too long, though I do want to fill some time. He created the character of the little tramp, or the little fellow, as he was known across the world. And so he wanted to do something different, and he wanted to do something that stood out. He didn't want to be a stock player. He wanted to be special. He knew he was good. He knew he was better than the other guys. And so what he did was he created this character. So he went to the costume department. And he found shoes that were way too big for him. Charlie was, I think, 5'3". He was a small guy, small, athletic, little old dude, And he got these giant shoes that were so big he had to put them on a wrong foot in, left foot on the right foot on the left, because if he didn't, they would fall off. and he got these really baggy pants, and then he put on this incredibly tight vest and this jacket that was way too short and a derby that didn't fit his head. So he just was trying to create this, kind of dichotomy, this walking contradiction. And then he added the toothbrush mustache that's famous because he wanted to add some age without adding too much age. He was very young looking. In fact, that was one thing Senna was disappointed about when he hired him. He looked like he was 16, even though at the time he was already in his early to mid 20s. And so he created a character. He got it makeup, put all that stuff on, walked on set, and Max Sennett started laughing until tears rolled down his face. He hadn't done anything yet, but the character alone made Mac laugh so much that when he was done, he was like, all right, go ahead, do your thing. And so it was, I think it was Tilly's Punctured Romance. No, correcting myself here. Kid Auto Races at Venice was the first time he does the Tramp character. And it's basically they're supposedly shooting a documentary of a soapbox race in Venice, and he just keeps interrupting the shot because he sees that there's a camera there. And he's just a bum, and he's just trying to just get involved in every shot, smoking a cigarette or whipping his cane around. Oh, I forgot about the bamboo cane, which is my favorite part, which I want one. If anybody wants to buy one, let me know. It's going to be a little taller than Charlie's, and I'd like it to be a rubber bamboo cane so I could just create mischief. Anyways, um, I think that was the first time he does that character. At that point, it has no name, it has no real resonance, nobody really cares. But it was the first time he used it. Then I think he did Tilly's Punctured Romance, which at the time I think it was Marie Dressler. Again, off the top of my head, feel free to correct me. And she was a big star at the time. She was a big, heavy set lady. It was physical comedy was a thing, and I think he played the third. But he made a good job of stealing the movie, and started to become a star in his own right. And then he did a few more films. Obviously we don't have time to go through his entire film history, but at that point, as he started to gather steam, what he really wanted to do was direct himself. He wanted to create and direct and write his own stuff. He was having a hard time with that. And so I think one of those movies, I think it was Mabel at the Wheel. It was Mabel Normand was directing, and she was directing Matt Sennett's girlfriend, by the way, and she was also a big star. And he just refused to work with her. He was just being a pain in the ass from start to finish, and to the point where he just refused to do certain things. He didn't want to do it this way. He kept complaining about the way they were shooting it, to the point where she just said, I can't do this. And Mac was ready to fire him on the spot, except he had just gotten a couple of telegrams from New York saying, who's this Chaplin guy? And I need more film. We need more reels. This guy is knocking it out right now. And so he couldn't fire him. And he just told Mabel, you're going to have to deal with him now. You're going to work with him. So, and they got through that production. And then Charlie told Mac, okay, listen, you're going to have to let me direct my own stuff. And I'll tell you what, the next one, I'll finance it. But you're going to have to let me shoot it and let me edit it. And I'm going to write it. But I'll tell you what else. If it fails, I'll never ask you again. I'll do whatever you say from here on out. But you're going to have to let me do this one time. And I'll finance it. So Sennett agreed because really he had nothing to lose at that point. And so Chaplin did the film, and I don't remember which one it is, and it was a giant success. And he proved that he could do what he wanted to do. And so here's the part where it starts to get tricky. At that point, he became a commodity, right? So other film companies, were looking at him. And Charlie was, as much as later on in his life and career, he tried to act like he was a socialist, every bit the capitalist that you think he was. He was all about money. He grew up poor. So because of that, he was always conscious of every dollar he earned. And his brother was, his manager, and was obviously in the same of the same mindset. And he started shopping his contract. He ended up going to SNA, which was a film company that was in decline. It was pretty close to shutting down. And they only did westerns too. And the guy, I think it was George Spohr, and I forget the name of the other guy, Billy Anderson. Billy Anderson. I'm almost sure that's true. Look it up. Billy Anderson signed him, despite George Spohr. It was really a power struggle between the two, and it was just a life, basically like staving off life support. And he signed Chaplin. Chaplin went to work with him, and he was very efficient. He was a young kid, And at that time, he was working his ass off because he wanted to buy his own studio, which he did. He bought his own studio. I still haven't gone to go see it, but it's still here from what I heard or I've read and seen. And he worked on to Mutual and made films for them. But the entire time, the idea was for him to be able to finance his own products, pay himself. Really, he was a giant star. He was an international star. I think at one point it was probably Charlie Chaplin and then Mickey Mouse. Anyways, so I guess I kind of overstepped myself here a little bit, but so let's talk about some of the movies. The Trap is the first film. Like, let's say, like you asked me, like, what films would you want to see if you want to know more about Charlie Chaplin? I would start with The Trap, and that's like the first reel that you get a real sense of who the vagabond tramp, the little fellow, is, and it's in a recurring theme where he's just kind of a lovable loser, and it was different from what comedy was in those days. Comedy was a lot more, just kind of like it was crude. It was like kick a guy in the butt, steal a wallet, steal candy from a baby, and then end up in another man's wife's bed somehow by accident. Then a giant chase would ensue, and he did that too. I'm not saying he was above it, but he he was the first guy. What I think makes him very very special is that he was the first guy who injected pathos into comedy. Like he put emotion into the comedy. There was something beyond just pie in the face type of humor, and the Tramp is a really good example of that, where he's just a vagabond. What was really funny about his character of the little fellow is that he was a bum. He was poor and he was homeless, but he had like a certain aristocratic air about him, and that's like the first scene of the film is he sits down and prepares himself to have lunch. He sits under a tree. He makes a big deal about picking his nails and cleaning and filing his nails, and he has like a little bottle of water and a jar of water, and he cleans his mustache and he cleans his face, and then he realizes there's nothing to eat. There's nothing in his little sack of food, so he grabs some grass, some dead grass basically, pours salt on it, and he eats it. And then he makes a big deal again about cleaning his face, cleaning the corners of his mouth with the water, dipping his hands in the water to make sure that he was clean. And that was kind of like, just like I said, the walking contradiction that was the Tramp character. And he ends up wandering into a ranch, falls in love with the farmer's daughter, becomes a ranch hand, is bad at it, and foils a robbery, and eventually, when everything is supposed to be said and done, the farmer's daughter reveals that she has a boyfriend that is a college student. Comes to visit her from the big city, and then Charlie is heartbroken, and he leaves her a note. Said, "I thought there was something between us," and then he goes on his way. So the reason why I bring this up is that there's a recurring theme here, and he did it in more than one of his movies. The Circus is the other one that comes to mind, where he kind of walks off with a bindle, and the camera's a long shot of him just slumped shoulders, staggering away, and then he stops, pops his head up, shrugs his shoulders, and then starts his Chaplin shuffle of saying like, hey, life goes on, man. It's not going to get me down." And that was the endearing part of that character. And being in silent film, it made him universally attractive because he didn't speak English, he didn't speak French, he didn't speak Spanish, he didn't speak Italian. He was just that guy. He was that indomitable character, the guy that was against all odds, still maintained a sense of humor, and not to mention he was a great physical comedian. He was just astonishingly good as a physical comedian. If you watch some of the movies, the timing that he does, and he does some physical stunts. For example, The Rink comes to mind, where apparently, allegedly, he had never roller skated before, but by the time they started shooting, he was the best roller skater that they had. And if you watch the movie, I actually find it hard to believe they had never roller skated before because he was crazy good. However, growing up as a dancer, growing up working under you know showman, show business parents and show business brothers and whatnot, and pretty much growing up on the stage, it's very plausible that he's just that gifted. And well, hell, in my opinion, he was a genius. And let me just say that Uh, not a savory character. Not a guy that I would really think I'd want to go to dinner with. Not somebody I would let date somebody I know. It was not the greatest guy. It was a different era. I don't think. You know what? Let's just stay away from that. But I'm just saying. I know somebody's going to listen to this and they've heard bad things about him. I have heard and read some bad things about him. But we're not talking about that, are we? We're talking about him as a filmmaker. And so he was a special guy. The Trap was the first thing I saw that he kind of fleshed that character and made it out to what it ended up becoming. Which leads me to the next film, which is The Kid. And now I'm already running over. So The Kid, um, that's a great film. It has a tearjerker ending, and I would encourage anyone that's curious to watch that movie. And that movie is, long story short, he is the tramp again, but he finds a basically an abandoned child, and he raises the kid, and he grows up with him, and the kid, by the way, ended up becoming Uncle Fester. If you want to look him up, and the kid ends up becoming reclaimed by social services, and then Charlie goes to rescue him, and then it has this like tearjerker of an ending. It's a beautiful, beautiful ending. And great movie. It's again the same character. Then we go to the Gold Rush. I'm gonna skip Payday in the Idol class. I was gonna put that on, but we're already over. Payday was his favorite short and one of my favorites. And what I tell people is, if you're having a bad day, look up Payday. It's a funny ass movie, and it's basically a handpicked husband. And it's Charlie. It puts Charlie as a construction worker, which in itself is funny because, like again, he's still the tiny little British guy with a pickaxe and a shovel. And so, and then obviously you can tell where that goes. And then he ends up stealing his paycheck from his wife, and he goes and he gets drunk, and he has to find his way home. The Idol class is a great short where he plays two characters. One is the tramp, and one is a very rich socialite who happens to be a raging alcoholic. And of course, through a series of misadventures, they get confused from one another, and I think it's really funny. I think of the shorts; those are probably my two favorites. There's a ton more. I have like probably 30 films of his. But going to the Gold Rush, he later said that was the film he most wanted to be remembered by, and that was the first time he did like a feature length film, which wasn't done in those days, unless it was like something D.W. Griffith was directing. You didn't do, especially comedy. You didn't do feature length. Everybody told him it was a ridiculous idea. It said it was doomed to fail. He insisted on doing it, and it was a masterpiece. And again, encourage anybody to look that movie up because it's really, really good. And he that's where he does the Oceana roll, where he puts the forks in the breads and makes it look like he's dancing. You don't know what I'm talking about? Just look up Oceana roll, Charlie Chaplin. It's a terrific movie, a terrific plot, which again he wrote, he directed, and obviously he starred in, and it's a great movie. I remember that was one of the first ones I sat down and watched. And then let's go to City Lights. City Lights was, boy, you want to talk about another tearjerker? I think might be the greatest ending in cinema of all time, at least for me. But guess what? I have a podcast. You can start one, and then tell me I'm wrong. I'll comment on it. uh, he uh, he plays he plays a tramp character, and he falls in love with a blind girl who sells flowers, and she doesn't know that he is a vagrant. She thinks he's a very rich man, and going through the process of creating a plot, he had a lot of heart. He had a lot of problems trying to get to the point where the flower girl thinks that he's a millionaire, and he had to work it out. Yet, I mean, like I said, this is another thing I've read a ton about, and I don't expect anybody to do any research on this. That's why you have me. But it was a brilliant film. He does a boxing scene in it that's I just think is about as well as anything you'd ever seen. He choreographs everything so damn well. He's so very good, and he I don't want to I don't want to ruin the ending, but it's a really, to me, one of the prettiest endings of a movie you'll ever see. Love it so very much. Then there's Modern Times, which is I missed a big point here. At the time that City Lights came around, sound came into movie pictures. Movies were starting to be rewired for sound. Charlie believed in the art of pantomime, so he absolutely resisted sound film. He just didn't want to do it. He was just adamantly opposed to it, vocally opposed to it. Came out in the press talking against it, and wouldn't do it. So because the theaters are rewired for with Vitaphone, for sound, he wrote and composed the soundtrack to City Lights, realizing that it was going to have sound one way or the other. But he refused to have any spoken word. He still had the cards and all that. And again, a success, a great film. Critics cannot deny what a great film it was. And then he just looked like a genius all over again. So then modern times came along, and I'll tell you what, this is a real stroke of genius on his part. Once again, it's the sound era. So this was kind of his socialist turn. It was kind of his railing against uh, corporate America, basically. He's an overworked guy who has a nervous breakdown because of working in a big company. I don't know. Again, you have to see it, and there's a really good sequence at the beginning of the film where he gets caught in the machinery of basically like a Ford factory type of a deal, and you'll have to see it. And but he was kind of outwardly speaking, but I'm gonna cut to the chase here. There's a scene where he gets a job as a singing waiter, but he doesn't sing, and he doesn't know the words. And his girlfriend, who's his real life girlfriend at the time, Paulette Goddard, comes up with the idea like, well, write it on your cufflinks, and then just go out there and sing, and just read it off your hands, and just try to do a good job. And so he goes out there, but he's wearing fake cufflinks, which I guess was a thing back then. So the minute he does his first kind of like pizzazz moment, the cufflinks fly off his wrist. And then so he looks down and he's like, oh, what do I do? And he looks over at his girlfriend, and Paulette Goddard just says, like, just fake it. I don't know. So here's why it's genius. He goes and sings complete gibberish. It's a made up language. But he pantomimes what he's talking about in the song, which is a woman that falls in love with a guy, but really she's using him for money and whatnot. And you can only tell because of the way he's acting out the song as he sings it. He's not saying, there's not one word that makes any sense. And it's such a brilliant fuck you to Hollywood at that point from him. It's such a brilliant way of saying, look, I can still do this without saying a goddamn word, and I'm still better than you. You guys think that you can't do it without me. Here's why I'm better. It was such, I mean, I don't know if it was by design. I believe it was. I'll leave it to you to figure that out. But he was just really pointing out, like, look, this is how easy this is for me. And I just think that alone is just brilliant. So after that, there's he doesn't have 4 more films, but he did the modern I'm sorry, The Great Dictator, which is kind of a spoof on Adolf Hitler, which in itself was crazy because this was before Hitler invaded Poland, and when he did it, everybody said, like, why are you doing this? You really shouldn't be picking fights like this. Then after Hitler invades Poland, World War II begins in earnest, he looks like a genius because he realized early on what a villain that man was. I don't know that I doubt he thought that far ahead, but it made him look like he was brilliant overnight. And he did a few more movies after that. Limelight's a really good one. Limelight is a really good one, and that's sort of that movie. The song "Smile" that a lot of people have used in movies. It came from that, again composed by Charlie Chaplin. So to wrap things up, the reason why I fell in love with Charlie Chaplin was a guy by the name of Robert Downey Jr. And I sound like Casey Kasem. Robert Downey Jr. here with your number 3 hit. He did a movie called Chaplin, directed by a guy, the guy who directed Gandhi. I can't think of his name right now. Good, Great movie. I we Somebody rented it. One of my sisters did, or my brother did. I don't know. And I watched it, and I overnight just fell in love with Chaplin. I found Chaplin to be very very appealing after that. And then that Christmas, because I'm an obsessive person according to my older sister. My parents probably saw like a bargain basement at a Kmart with a bunch of VHS cassettes of Chaplin and said, "Well, this will shut them up." And they bought me, they bought me like 3 or 4 VHSs of his movies, and I was so excited. I can't even tell you, to the point where like it was Christmas Eve. It was probably like 1 in the morning, and I was like, "Can I watch one?" And they were like, "Yeah, fine." Just trying to not to make too much noise, you know. And I was only 34 at the time, so you know, I had to mind my business. I'm kidding. I was a teenager, but I really stayed up and I watched. I remember I watched By the Sea and I watched The Bank. I absolutely remember these moments. Those movies are, by the way, really really good, really funny. If you're having, again, especially those shorts and especially the earliest ones, if you're having a bad day, pop those on. You can probably find them on YouTube and just laugh a little bit and just forget about what you're mad about, you know. And I was hooked. I was absolutely smitten. And it was Robert Downey Jr.'s performance that made it really, really appealing to me. I found out later that, for example, there's a scene of him playing tennis, which Chaplin was a good tennis player, and it was kind of a big deal in Hollywood in those days. Well, Charlie's a left-hander. Robert Downey Jr. is not. He learned how to play tennis left-handed for that role. There's a scene where he plays the violin. Nobody played the violin left-handed, by the way. Everybody thought that was really weird. Robert Downey Jr. learned how to play the violin just for the scene. I mean, he obviously didn't become a great violin player, but he learned how to play the scene left-handed because Charlie Chaplin was left-handed. There's another where he plays the cello. Same thing. Downey Jr. had that commitment that I think is what made him special. What makes him special? Before he was ever Tony Stark, he had that kind of commitment. There's obviously he got derailed a little bit, no pun intended, but he's always been that talented. He's been that dedicated. He's a very, very good, great actor. I'm surprised as hell he doesn't have an Oscar yet. And he made me fall in love with this guy that I believe. I mean, I think it goes without saying that he revolutionized cinema. I just think that's it. And I wanted to do something. I did. Um, we're going to try again. I tried all weekend, guys. It was tough, but hey, I put it together, right? Let's hope this time it sticks. All right, I just did that because I ran out of things to say. Thinking aloud, chugging along. We're trying our best. We do what we can, right? Uh, I'm hoping we post this, and then I'm hoping we can do something really good in a week or so.
Uh-oh.
Until then, let's keep let's keep trying. Appreciate you listening to me. I ran a little long. I know I did. Uh, just in the words of the great Mariano Quintero, hit the like. And I love you guys. And I'll talk to you hopefully very soon. That was way too long.